Sophia Bello stood before her mirror that morning, brushing a light layer of powder across her smooth brown skin. She was putting the finishing touches on her makeup, her mind set on the big meeting ahead. Her one-bedroom apartment was tastefully furnished, not luxurious but neat, elegant and comfortable. She wasn't among the city's wealthiest women, but she was doing well for herself, running a small but growing supplies company. She leaned closer to the mirror, adjusted her lipstick and whispered, "Today must go perfectly." Her phone buzzed beside her. It was a call from Musa, her driver. She frowned. He rarely called this early. "Yes, Musa, what is it?" she asked sharply. "Good morning, madam," came the weak voice on the line. "I'm sorry, Ma. I won't be able to come in today. I've been very sick since last night. My son, David, will come and drive you to your meeting so you won't be late." Sophia froze for a moment, her face tightening. "Your son?" she repeated, disbelief dripping from her tone. "Yes, Ma. Please, he's a careful driver. I didn't want to disappoint you." "Musa," she snapped. "Is this a joke? You mean you're sending your son, to drive me? Do I look like someone running a family charity?" "No, Ma, please. It's just for today." "Just for today?" she interrupted. "Fine. If he makes me late, you'll hear from me. Do you understand?" "Yes, Ma, thank you, Ma," Musa said weakly. She ended the call with an annoyed sigh. "Unbelievable. Imagine that. A driver sending his son to drive me," she muttered, shaking her head as she packed her things. 15 minutes later, she stepped out of her apartment, heels clicking on the tiled floor. A young man stood beside her silver Toyota Camry, hands clasped respectfully. He looked neat, white shirt tucked in, clean trousers, a quiet confidence in his eyes. "Good morning, Ma," he said, bowing slightly. "I'm David, Musa's son." Sophia gave him a long, unimpressed stare. "So, you're the one he sent?" "Yes, Ma." "Humph. You don't look like a driver. Do you even know how to drive?" "Yes, Ma," he answered calmly. "I've been driving for a few years now." "Are you licensed?" "Yes, Ma." She folded her arms. "I hope you're not one of those boys who learn how to drive on YouTube and think they're professionals." "No, Ma," David replied quietly. Sophia rolled her eyes and waved toward the car. "Well, don't just stand there. Open the door." "Yes, Ma." He hurried to open the back door for her. As she got in, she muttered under her breath, "Musa has really lost his mind." David started the car and drove out of the compound carefully. For a while there was silence, broken only by the hum of the engine. Then David asked respectfully, "Please, Ma, where are we going?" "To a meeting," she replied curtly, staring at her phone screen. "I'll tell you when we're close." "Yes, Ma," he said quietly. Sophia glanced up at him through the rearview mirror. "And don't talk too much, just focus on your driving. I don't want stories." David nodded silently. As they joined the busy morning traffic, Sophia sighed impatiently. "If this boy makes me late today, I'll make sure his father never drives for me again," she said to herself. David heard her but said nothing. His father had warned him before leaving home. "Son, Madam can be harsh with her words, but she has a good heart. Be patient, be respectful. Don't answer back no matter what." So he drove on, calm, focused and silent, while Sophia sat in the back seat, completely unaware that this very boy she was looking down on was about to change her life forever. The morning traffic thickened as David skillfully maneuvered through the busy Lagos streets. Yellow buses honked endlessly, hawkers weaved between cars selling bottled water and plantain chips, and impatient drivers shouted insults at one another. Sophia sat in the back seat, her arms folded, tapping her fingers impatiently on her handbag. Every few minutes, she looked at her wristwatch, frowning. "Can't you go faster?" she snapped suddenly. David glanced at the traffic ahead and said quietly, "I'm trying my best, Ma. The road is tight." "Well, try harder. I can't afford to be late for this meeting." "Yes, Ma," he said, adjusting slightly but refusing to drive recklessly. Sophia exhaled loudly. "If your father were here, we'd have made more progress. I don't know why he thought it was okay to send you. This isn't a joke, you know." David said nothing. He'd learned long ago that silence could sometimes speak louder than defense. His father had always taught him, when people look down on you, don't look back at them. Look ahead. As they drove, Sophia's phone rang. She answered immediately. "Yes, Mr. Adams, I'm on my way," she said in her confident business tone. "Please tell the board members not to start without me. I'll be there shortly." She hung up and looked toward the front. "Do you even know where you're going?" David hesitated for a second. "Not yet, Ma." "You didn't give me the address." She rolled her eyes dramatically. "Oh, wonderful. I have a driver who doesn't even know the destination. This day just keeps getting better." "I'm sorry, Ma," David said gently. "If you can tell me where to go, I'll take you there." Sophia opened her bag, pulled out her phone, and tossed it onto the front seat beside him. "Use the map. It's saved there. Royal Tech Industries, Victoria Island. Just follow the GPS. I don't want to talk again." "Yes, Ma," he said, picking up the phone respectfully. They continued in silence for a while. Occasionally, Sophia would sigh or mutter something under her breath about incompetence or how people never take work seriously these days. David remained composed. His father's voice echoed in his mind again. "Son, when life puts you in front of rude people, remember that respect isn't a favor you give them. It's proof of who you are." He smiled faintly at the thought and focused on the road. After about 20 minutes, the traffic began to ease. David drove smoothly, obeying every signal, his hands steady and sure. Sophia noticed it, though she wouldn't admit it. He drove far better than she had expected. Still, pride wouldn't let her stay quiet. She said finally. "At least you're not as bad as I thought. I expected you to be a reckless street driver." David simply smiled through the rearview mirror. "Thank you, Ma." Sophia's tone softened slightly. "How old are you, anyway?" 27, Ma." 27, she repeated. "And you're still driving your father's boss around. Don't you have something better to do?" David glanced at her reflection and replied calmly, "I actually do, Ma. But today I'm just helping my father because he's sick. I couldn't let him lose his job because of his health." Sophia scoffed. "That's his problem, not yours. If he's sick, he should rest. You young people always like to interfere in things that don't concern you." David didn't respond this time. He simply smiled faintly and kept driving. They soon arrived at the company gate. The security guard waved them in after checking Sophia's ID. David parked gently in front of the main building and stepped out quickly to open her door. Sophia stepped out, adjusting her jacket. "Well, at least you didn't crash the car," she said with a hint of sarcasm. David bowed slightly. "Thank you, Ma." She looked at him for a moment. There was something about his calmness that unsettled her pride a bit. He wasn't timid, and he wasn't angry. He was just composed. "Wait here," she said sharply. "I'll be out soon." "Yes, Ma," David replied. She walked briskly toward the building, heels clicking on the pavement, but something about his polite tone lingered in her mind. She brushed it off. She had no idea that inside that very building, she was about to meet him again in a way that would shatter every assumption she had made that morning. Sophia walked briskly into the tall glass building of Royal Tech Industries, clutching her folder tightly. Her heels echoed on the marble floor as she headed straight for the reception desk. "Good morning, Ma," the receptionist greeted with a warm smile. "You're here for the 10 a.m. presentation, right?" "Yes," Sophia replied confidently. "I'm from Bello Supplies Limited. I have a meeting with your company's management." "All right, Ma. Please have a seat. The meeting will begin in about 10 minutes. The company's owner just arrived." Sophia nodded and walked to one of the waiting chairs. She sat gracefully, crossed her legs, and began reviewing her notes. Her mind raced with excitement and anxiety. If she secured this tender, it would be the biggest deal of her career. Minutes later, a tall, well-dressed young man in a navy blue suit walked in. He carried himself with quiet confidence, greeting the receptionist and other staff as he made his way to the conference room. The receptionist quickly stood and said to Sophia, "That's Mr. David Musa, the owner of the company. You'll be meeting with him today." Sophia froze. Her head slowly turned toward the man. Her heart skipped a beat. "Wait, What did you just say? She asked in disbelief. The owner, the receptionist repeated politely. Mr. David Musa. He's the CEO of Royal Tech Industries. For a moment, Sophia thought she hadn't heard correctly. David Musa. That name echoed in her head like a thunderclap. Her driver's son, David, was outside, waiting for her in the car. This couldn't be him. It was impossible. But then, curiosity got the better of her. She stood up and followed quietly behind the receptionist as they walked into the meeting room. The large boardroom was bright and spacious, with glass walls and sleek furniture. Sophia's eyes fell on the man standing at the head of the long table, and her breath caught in her throat. It was him, the same David who had driven her that morning, the same quiet young man she had looked down on. He turned slowly, his calm eyes meeting hers. For a brief moment, she felt like the ground would open and swallow her whole. David smiled gently. Oh, Miss Sophia Bello, please, have a seat. Sophia's legs felt weak. You're the owner? She stammered. Yes, he said simply. I am. The other staff members looked confused. A few exchanged surprised glances, wondering why she looked so pale. I don't understand, Sophia muttered, her voice trembling slightly. You said your father was a driver. David nodded, his expression kind but steady. Yes, Ma, he is. My father has been a driver for 20 years. He's the one who made it possible for me to go to school, to study abroad, and to build this company. I've begged him to stop working and rest, but he insists on continuing because he finds pride in his labor. Sophia's mouth went dry. She couldn't say a word. The memory of her harsh words that morning flooded her mind, how she had belittled him, doubted him, and treated him like a nobody. David continued softly. He told me you had an important meeting today. I came to help because I didn't want him to lose his job or disappoint you. I honestly didn't know the meeting was with you until I walked in. The room went silent. The tension was thick, but David's voice remained calm and humble. Sophia swallowed hard and looked down at her hands. I'm so sorry, sir, she said quietly. I spoke to you so rudely this morning, I didn't know. David raised a hand gently to stop her. It's okay, Miss Sophia. You didn't know. But I hope this reminds us of something. To never look down on anyone. People are not always what they appear to be. Sophia nodded slowly, her eyes glistening. You're right, sir. I've learned my lesson today. David smiled faintly. Good. Now, let's look at your file. He opened her folder, flipped through the pages, and took a few moments to read. When he finished, he closed it neatly and looked up. You'll get this tender because you deserve it, he said with a smile. I respect capable people, and you've done excellent work. Sophia looked both relieved and humbled. Thank you, sir. I don't know what to say. Just promise me one thing, David said kindly. Treat everyone with respect, no matter their position. You never know who's sitting behind the wheel. Sophia managed a small smile, tears forming in her eyes. I will, sir, I promise. The meeting ended smoothly, with David and Sophia finalizing the tender details. The tension from earlier had melted away, replaced by mutual respect and quiet admiration. As the other staff left the boardroom, Sophia remained seated for a moment, gathering the courage to speak. David noticed her hesitation and said gently, You can stay a bit if you'd like. I have a few minutes before my next meeting. Sophia smiled faintly, her tone soft and sincere. Thank you, sir. I actually wanted to apologize again. I've been replaying everything I said to you this morning, and I feel so ashamed. You were calm when I was rude, patient when I was disrespectful. I wish I could take it all back. David leaned slightly forward, his expression warm and forgiving. Miss Sophia, you don't need to apologize anymore. I understand. My father always told me, people act from what they see. Don't take offense. Teach them by how you respond. Sophia nodded slowly. Your father sounds like a wise man. David smiled proudly. He is, more than anyone I've ever met. My father is my greatest teacher. He paused briefly, as if remembering something tender. Then he continued. I've begged him many times to stop working. I told him, Dad, I can take care of you now. You don't have to drive anymore. But he always says the same thing. Son, this job made you who you are. Every early morning I drove people around, every drop of sweat I shed. It was worth it to see you succeed. So let me keep doing what I know, until I can't anymore. Sophia's eyes softened. She could almost see the image of an old man, proud yet humble, standing behind his son's greatness. David smiled faintly and continued, I respect that. He may be a driver to others, but to me, he's the man who built an empire with his endurance and faith. Every time I see him behind that steering wheel, I'm reminded of where I came from and how far hard work can take anyone, no matter where they start. Sophia exhaled deeply. That's incredible. You speak about him with so much love and honor. I can't remember the last time I heard someone talk about their father like that. David chuckled softly. He deserves it. You see, I could have fired him, or forced him to stop working, but that would break his spirit. My father doesn't see driving as shameful. He sees it as service, as dignity, and that's something I've learned to admire. Sophia nodded slowly, her heart heavy with humility. I misjudged both of you, she said quietly. I thought being rich or successful meant looking important, talking down to others. But today, I see that true success wears humility. David smiled. You're not alone in that. Most people measure worth by position, not character. But sometimes the person you think is beneath you may actually be far above. Not in money, but in mind. There was a brief silence between them. Not awkward, but peaceful. The kind of silence that happens when lessons sink deeply into the heart. Sophia finally stood up. Sir, thank you for your time, and for your patience. Please extend my greetings to your father. Tell him he raised a fine man. David stood as well, smiling warmly. I will, and thank you for being open enough to learn. Not everyone does. As he escorted her to the door, Sophia turned to him once more and said, You've changed how I see people. From now on, I'll remember that everyone, whether a driver or a CEO, deserves respect. David nodded. That's all that matters, Miss Sophia. Titles fade. Character doesn't. When she stepped outside, the afternoon sun was bright, and the air felt different, lighter. She saw the same car she had entered that morning, the same seat where her pride had once sat comfortably. David followed her out, holding the car key. Let me have my driver take you home, Miss Sophia, he said politely. Sophia shook her head quickly. No, please. You've done enough already. I can find my way home. David smiled gently. Don't worry. I wasn't going to drive you myself this time, he said playfully. My assistant will take you. They both shared a short laugh, the first one since morning. A young man in a company uniform stepped forward, bowing slightly. Good afternoon, Ma. I'll drive you home. Sophia hesitated, then nodded. All right. Thank you. Before entering the car, she turned to David one more time. You've changed how I see people. From now on, I'll remember that everyone, whether a driver or a CEO, deserves respect. David nodded. That's all that matters, Miss Sophia. Titles fade. Character doesn't. Sophia smiled, entered the car, and the driver started the engine. As they drove away, she looked back at the building, her thoughts heavy but peaceful. She whispered to herself, never look down on anyone. Then she leaned back on the seat, watching the city roll by, humbled, grateful, and quietly changed. 2 days passed, yet Sophia couldn't get David's words out of her mind. Titles fade, character doesn't. They echoed in her heart like a gentle rebuke and a quiet lesson. She had spent those 2 days replaying every moment, her sharp tone in the morning, her laughter at his father's occupation, and his calm, dignified reply. It wasn't shame alone that filled her now, but deep admiration. That evening, after work, Sophia sat on her couch, staring at the tender file David had approved. She smiled faintly. I got the contract, she thought, but the real reward was the lesson I learned. Her conscience urged her to do one more thing: visit his father, the man whose humility and hard work had raised such a son. The next morning she called David. "Good morning, Mr. David," she said softly, her tone much gentler than before. "Good morning, Miss Sophia," he replied, surprised by the warmth in her voice. I'd like to visit your father," she continued. "Please don't say no. I just want to see him and thank him personally." There was a pause on the other end. Then David said, "That would mean a lot to him, Ma. He's at home resting. I'll text you the address." Sophia arrived an hour later, holding a fruit basket and a small gift bag. The house was modest, neat, peaceful, and filled with the quiet simplicity that spoke of honest living. David opened the door with a welcoming smile. "You really came," he said. "I gave my word," Sophia replied. Inside, Musa sat on a wooden chair near the window, reading a small devotional book. His smile widened when he saw Sophia. "Good morning, madam," he greeted weakly, still recovering from his illness. "David told me you'd visit. You didn't have to trouble yourself." "It's not trouble, sir," Sophia said sincerely, setting the basket on the table. "I came to thank you. You raised a fine man, respectful, humble and wise, and to apologize for how I behaved that day." Musa chuckled softly. Don't mind that, madam. Life teaches all of us in different ways. I've made my own mistakes too. What matters is that we learn." Sophia nodded, touched by his gentle wisdom. "I've been thinking a lot since that day," she said. "Your son has a heart many people twice his age don't have. You must be proud." "I am," Musa said with a smile. "He's been my greatest blessing. Even when I tell him to let me retire, he still respects my decision to work. That's love, not in words, but in understanding." Tears welled up in Sophia's eyes. She had met wealthy men, powerful clients and executives with pride taller than their buildings, but none had inspired her the way this humble family did. She stood up, extended her hand to Musa, and said, "Thank you for reminding me that true worth isn't in money or title, but in character." Musa took her hand warmly. "And thank you, madam, for having the humility to learn. That too is rare." David watched the two of them, a quiet pride shining in his eyes. As Sophia turned to leave, Musa said softly, "Madam Sophia, may God bless your work and your heart." She smiled, deeply moved. "Thank you, sir. I'll never forget this visit." Outside, as she entered her car, Sophia looked up at the sky and breathed deeply. For the first time in a long while she felt peace, not the peace that comes from success, but the peace that comes from growth. Sophia's experience taught her one of life's greatest lessons, that humility is the true mark of greatness. No matter our position, background or wealth, respect should always be mutual. The one you look down on today might be the very person who holds the key to your next breakthrough. From that day, Sophia became a changed woman, more patient, more kind, and more respectful to everyone around her. And David? He continued to live by the same values his father had instilled in him: honor, humility, and hard work. Moral lesson: never judge a person by their job or appearance. True worth is found in character, not in titles. If this story touched your heart, let's hear your thoughts in the comments. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you won't miss more inspiring stories like this.